were taught to believe in a God of rules, a distant ruler watching from above, judging, rewarding, and punishing. A God who tells you what is right and wrong, what you can be, and what you must fear. That image has shaped how humans built their laws, their faith, and even their idea of themselves. But what if that God, the one of control and obedience, was never the ultimate truth? What if the Creator you've been told to worship is just a reflection, not the source itself? There is something far greater, something the ancients called the monad. It is not a being with a crown, not a ruler in the sky, but the infinite essence behind all existence. Think of it like this. A lamp can light up a room, but its glow only reaches so far. The sun, though, it floods the entire world with light, giving warmth and life to everything it touches. The God of laws and fear is like the lamp, bright but small. The monad is like the sun, limitless, eternal, beyond all forms and ideas. It doesn't command, it is. It doesn't demand worship. It breathes through everything that exists. Every heartbeat, every star, every thought, all are expressions of it. Long ago, wise voices tried to describe this truth. Plato spoke of the good, so pure that words can barely touch it. Plotinus called it the one, beyond thought, beyond even being itself. The monad is not someone to bow before. It is the endless source within you and beyond you, the light that was never separate from what you are. The ancient sages of Egypt spoke in hushed tones about a hidden source of light, a brilliance too pure for human eyes to see. In India, the mystics called it Brahman, the one reality behind all illusions, the eternal presence beneath the surface of life. Across every land, the same truth appeared in different names and symbols. All rivers flow from one source, and that source is the monad, the origin beyond all beginnings. But over time, the purity of this truth was lost. Stories changed, beliefs were reshaped. Humanity was taught to look upward, not inward. People stopped seeking the boundless one and instead began to serve a God who ruled like a king, who judged, who punished, and rewarded. The light within was replaced by the fear of a hand above, and slowly, the monad, the infinite source, was buried under layers of rules, hierarchy, and control. Humanity forgot the sun and began worshiping the lamp. You can feel the weight of this truth when it hits you. It shakes something deep inside because it makes you wonder, who have you really been worshiping? Were you led to serve a power built on fear when the true divine asks for nothing? A quiet voice within urges you to look deeper, to question whether the God of laws and threats could ever be the God of light and love. The truth is simple, but dangerous. The highest source isn't outside of you. It lives within you. And once you see that, once you even glimpse it, everything you thought was solid begins to tremble. Then the question comes, why was this truth hidden? Why was the knowledge of the monad kept from humanity? Because it threatened every structure of control. If every soul knew that the spark of infinity burns inside them, priests would lose their power, kings would lose their crowns, and empires would lose their chains. A person who knows they are divine cannot be ruled by fear. A person united with the eternal needs no master, no permission, no savior to speak for them. So the story was changed. The rulers and priests rewrote the truth to protect their authority. They replaced the infinite monad with a smaller God, one of laws, commands, and punishments, a God who stands apart from creation, demanding obedience instead of awakening. But this was not the true source. It was the demiurge, the craftsman who shapes matter, but does not create it, Powerful, yes, but not ultimate. Like a sculptor carving from stone he did not make, he forms what he does not originate. The ancients said he was like a painter who believes he invented color, forgetting that the light itself existed long before his art. These teachings come from something much deeper. The demiurge is like that painter, a maker, not the source. He shapes the world, but the energy and laws that allow anything to exist come only from the monad. In some ancient stories, the demiurge simply didn't know this truth. In others, he grew proud, believing himself to be the only god, demanding worship and ruling through fear. And this belief created a great tension in the ancient world. Because if people started to question whether the creator of the material world was not the highest being, everything would begin to fall apart. What priest could demand obedience if his God was only a fragment? What prophet could claim authority if the true source was beyond his reach? What empire could justify its power if divinity lived not in temples or palaces, but within every human soul? To keep control, the knowledge of the monad had to be erased, and the demiurge had to be raised up. This wasn't done gently. Sacred writings that spoke of the higher source were banned, labeled heresy, and burned. Teachers who revealed the secret were silenced, exiled, or killed. The communities that lived by this wisdom, the early Gnostics, the mystics, the seekers of inner truth, were hunted and erased. Over time, only one story remained. One God, all-powerful, commanding, unquestionable. A God whose authority was absolute and whose followers learned to fear more than they understood. Faith became obedience. Devotion became submission. The living light within was replaced by laws carved in stone. Yet the truth never fully disappeared. Fragments of it still survived, hidden in words, in symbols, in whispers. Even the Gospel of John begins with a trace of the old knowing. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That Word, the Logos, was not the demiurge, but the living vibration of the monad itself, the pure sound of creation forming into being. And when Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you," he broke the illusion of a distant throne. He pointed not to obedience, but to awakening, to the realization that the divine spark lives in every soul. So humanity was left standing between two visions. One shows a God outside you, demanding loyalty, fear, and control. The other reveals a source within you, inviting remembrance, love, and union. Most were taught to cling to the first and fear the second, but deep down, something stirs. A quiet question that refuses to die. Which vision feels true to the deepest part of you? The God who rules from afar, or the radiant source that breathes through your very being? Now, return to the Garden of Eden, the story told to almost every child. Two figures stand before a tree, warned by their God not to eat its fruit. A serpent appears in the garden, whispering a promise. That if Adam and Eve eat the fruit, their eyes will be opened, and they will become like gods. They eat, and everything changes. The traditional story says this was the beginning of human suffering, that disobedience brought death into the world. But look closer. The serpent promised knowledge, and knowledge is exactly what they gained. Their eyes opened, and they did not die. So ask yourself, who was really telling the truth? Religion has long taught that the serpent was the deceiver, the embodiment of evil, the enemy of God. But what if that idea was shaped to hide a deeper meaning? To those who see with Gnostic eyes, the serpent was never a villain, but a messenger, a liberator. The one who dared to awaken humanity from ignorance, who revealed that we were never meant to stay blind and obedient in a garden built on control. Eating the fruit was not humanity's fall. It was the beginning of awareness. It was the moment consciousness expanded, the first step toward remembering our divine nature. And what about the God who forbade the fruit? He warned that it would bring death, yet it brought awakening. He cast Adam and Eve out, not because they destroyed themselves, but because they had come too close to becoming like him. Behold, the man has become like one of us, he said, afraid they might reach for eternal life as well. In that moment, the mask slips. The God of Genesis no longer looks like a loving protector, but a ruler guarding his throne. The exile from Eden was not a punishment. It was a way to contain humanity's potential. This reversal of roles disturbed many through the ages, yet hints of it never disappeared. In Paradise Lost, John Milton gave voice to that hidden fire when Satan declares, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven." To the church, those words were blasphemy, pride in its purest form. But seen through awakened eyes, they become something else, a cry for freedom from false authority, a refusal to kneel before a God who rules through fear. Without realizing it, Milton echoed the ancient Gnostic spirit, choosing knowledge over obedience, liberation over servitude. The serpent, of course, is not the monad itself. The serpent is a symbol, a reminder, a messenger, a spark of awakening. The true monad lies beyond both God and serpent, beyond good and evil, beyond all opposites. Yet in this myth, the serpent plays the sacred role of awakening, whispering to humanity, "You are not slaves. You are divine beings who have forgotten what you are." Seen this way, Eden was never humanity's end. It was our beginning. The moment we first reached toward the light of the true source, even without knowing its name. Ask yourself, which voice feels closer to the truth within you? The voice that commands, "Obey or be destroyed," or the one that invites, "Awaken and see that you are divine"? One voice imprisons you in fear, the other sets you free. The story of the fall, when seen in this light, becomes the story of humanity's rise, the first spark of remembrance in the long journey back to the monad. And now, look at the world around you. It often feels like a vast system designed to keep you small. Governments define your rights, economies measure your worth, religions dictate what you must believe. These are the structures of the demiurge, systems built to maintain obedience, to keep the spark asleep. To most people, this seems natural, simply how the world works. But somewhere deep inside, you know better. You feel something stirring, a quiet reminder that you are more than what these systems tell you. That whisper is the spark of the monad. The Gnostics taught that while the demiurge may have shaped the material world, he could never destroy the light that gave it life. Every soul carries a fragment of that divine source, a living flame of the one within. This spark isn't just inspiration or intuition. It is the presence of the monad itself, hidden in human form. When you feel restless, when you long for something beyond the noise of the world, when no authority can satisfy your hunger for truth, that is the monad calling you home. That spark inside you is not separate from it. It is it. The infinite reflected in a single soul, the flame of eternity glowing within the lamp of your being. To follow that spark is to begin the sacred journey of remembrance, the return to what you have always been. It is like chasing a thread of light through a dark maze. The deeper you follow it, the more the path reveals itself, and you begin to see that the prison you thought you were in was never truly real. The walls were made of illusion, and the key, it was always inside you. But then comes the question, why would the monad place you here, in a world so full of limits, pain, and struggle? The answer is simple yet profound. Consciousness expands through contrast. In the stillness of infinity, the monad is whole, but through experience, through you, it learns to know itself in endless ways. You are not here as punishment. You are here as an expression of divine discovery. Your life is the monad exploring itself through your eyes. Every joy, every heartbreak, every moment of awakening is the one reflecting on its own infinite nature. So when you turn inward, when you follow that spark, you're not escaping reality, you're fulfilling it. You're returning to the truth that you were never just human, never a servant trapped in some cosmic cage, but the monad itself, dreaming, learning, awakening through you. That inner spark is not a symbol, it is truth. And the more you nourish it with awareness, the brighter it grows, until the illusions fall away, and you stand face to face with what you've always been. When the knowledge of the monad became too dangerous to speak openly, it slipped into secrecy. Mystics, sages, and seekers refused to let the light die, even under the threat of death. They hid it in symbols, stories, and sacred rituals, so that it could survive the flames of persecution. The Eleusinian mysteries of Greece spoke of the soul's return to its divine source. The Hermetic teachings of Egypt declared, all is mind, that the world we see is only a reflection of thought. Later, the Rosicrucians and Freemasons carried fragments of this same wisdom, that reality is born from consciousness, and that every human carries the spark of the monad within. But over time, even these teachings were corrupted. Some groups became obsessed with power, hierarchy, and secrecy. Yet, beneath the surface, the pure message still endured. Hidden in allegories and ancient emblems, a compass and square, a rose upon a cross, an alchemist's furnace turning lead into gold. Each was a silent reminder that the true transformation happens within, that the mind shapes matter, and that awakening is the real treasure. And then there are those secret circles that few have ever heard of. The ones with no names, no symbols, no public face. They work in silence, not out of pride, but for survival. They know that the powers ruling this material world, the demiurge and those who serve him, destroy anyone who reveals that thought precedes reality, that mind is the true architect of creation. Knowledge like this doesn't just threaten governments or religions, it threatens the entire system of control. Those who worship only the material world cannot allow this truth to spread. They cling to the illusion that power comes from money, armies, and laws. So they burn the books, twist the symbols, and silence the teachers, all to keep humanity asleep. Because if people ever remembered what they truly are, sparks of the monad, creators instead of slaves, every empire built on fear would fall overnight. This is why the world looks the way it does today, divided, restless, and endlessly chasing shadows. The truth of the One, the eternal source of all, remains hidden, while the illusion of separation rules every corner of human life. People are taught to see themselves as isolated beings, fighting for meaning in a broken world. But even in the deepest darkness, something sacred still burns. The source placed its light within every living soul, a spark that cannot be destroyed, no matter how many lies are built upon it. Civilizations may rise and fall, knowledge may be erased, temples may crumble, But that inner flame never dies. It waits, quietly, for the moment when consciousness remembers what it truly is. Throughout time, secret societies, mystics, and hidden orders have tried to guard this ancient truth. Some protected it with wisdom, others used it to control. But no group, no book, no temple can ever truly own the truth. The real guardian of this secret has always been you. The memory of the One lives inside your very being, buried beneath the noise of fear, belief, and distraction. And as more souls awaken to this inner memory, the structures built on control begin to weaken. The illusion that binds humanity, fear, greed, and power, starts to crumble. Because nothing can stand against the realization of the infinite within. When the truth awakens inside enough hearts, no ruler, no system, no false god can survive it. You now stand before a sacred choice, the same choice every soul must face through lifetimes. One path keeps you bound to the false creator, the demiurge, a web of fear, obedience, and dependence on forces outside yourself. This path feeds on your doubt, your guilt, and your forgetfulness. It keeps you busy searching for salvation in the outer world while ignoring the living light within. The other path leads inward, back into the eternal spark that has always burned in the center of your being. That spark is not a symbol or a dream. It is the living presence of the One, the monad, within you. It whispers through your intuition, through your pain, through the silence between your thoughts. It calls you to remember who you really are. Not a lost soul begging for mercy, but the source itself, dreaming through human form. The true journey is not about kneeling before a god in the sky or following blind rules of faith. It is about remembering that you were never separate from the source. You were never banished. You only forgot. To remember is to return. To awaken is to live as the infinite being you were always meant to be, free, aware, and whole. But make no mistake, the path of truth is not easy. In this world, it has always been dangerous. Those who carried the light were often silenced, ridiculed, or destroyed. The forces that feed on ignorance fear only one thing: awakening. That's why fear is their greatest weapon. Fear keeps humanity asleep, chasing comfort instead of truth. But fear has no power over one who remembers the light. Trust the spark within you. It will guide you through every illusion, every shadow, every deception. Follow it with courage, even when the world calls you mad. Because at the end of all struggles, when the illusions fall away, those who kept the light alive will return to the One. And in that final awakening, you will see that you were never truly lost. You were never broken. You were always the One. Walking the long road home to itself, awakening, remembering, and becoming what you have always been. The infinite, eternal source looking through human eyes.